All right, here we are, Kyle. What's going on with you, man?
Another day, buddy. Glad it's Friday. Been a long week.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, there's nobody in here with us yet. That's totally cool. We'll do our thing either way because I think this will be this show specifically compared to the others we've done is definitely a go back and watch it again, even if people watch it. Is how I hope this turns out, anyways. Um, and you see, I got the scroller there at the bottom. The headline under my you got this is not legal advice too. Huh?
I went. I figured if that's what you put there, it was solid. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. None of what I'm saying tonight is. Hey, Lisa, thanks for being here. Sure appreciate it. None of what we're going to talk about tonight is is about how to get rid of this cough because I ain't figured that out yet. But it's going to be legal. None of it's going to be legal advice, and so I've got that all over the place to the point of being a little bit on the silly side. So it's got a little bit of a Monty Python feel, I think. But
we'll roll with it.
Exactly. But and just like you heard me say in the classes you've heard me teach before, I don't know where the line is between just explaining something to someone and legal advice is, but wherever that line is, I'm not crossing it. I'm not doing it, all right? Because I'm telling people go consult an attorney if you actually have other questions. So tonight we're just going to talk about, as you know, from Kyle's taught a lot of concealed carry classes with me, and this is just going to be a show about how self-defense works from the way it should be considered from your average defender, right? And this isn't even necessarily a gun thing, but anyways, for any future people show up, and Lisa thus far, and Kyle, thanks for being here. Sure appreciate it. And make sure you don't forget to go hit that like button before you get involved in what we're saying, and you forget. Do me a favor and hit the like. If you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. Hey, I've noticed the last 3 shows we've done, I'll go up a certain amount of subscribers, and then the very next day I'm down one of them. So it's like there's somebody that subscribes to me because I say it, and then they don't want to, so then they unsubscribe. I don't know. I'm making that up in my head. But I always go up a couple and then down at least one the next day. So I don't know what's up with that. Yeah. But it's not been going up a whole lot lately, but no big deal. Just building the system, learning how this works, trying to get consistent. So this is all the genesis of the see how I threw that in there. This is all the genesis of the program. So, anyways, you drinking something tonight?
I am more of that Wheatley's vodka by Buffalo Trace with a little bit of OJ. Man, it's kind of felt like a vodka and OJ night for me.
And that's in a plastic cup too, right? Is that what I saw there?
I'm throwing back, man, about a decade and a half. You know,
it's a Friday night. It sounds like you're missing. The only thing you're missing there is the bonfire.
If I could figure out how to do that in this room, I would.
I hear you. No, tonight I've got my Second Amendment glass.
Yeah, I still don't have one of those. Just I know.
I have a Second Amendment glass that I got at the Gun Rights Policy Conference down in Texas this past year, and
said red Solo cup.
Yeah, no, I think it's a wannabe, isn't it? It's a
reusable. It's one of the red cups that you get from the dollar store that are cheap that you don't really worry about, but that don't crack easy when you wash them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I almost never like plastic, man. I just hate drinking out of plastic. I don't. Yeah,
it was the largest cup. When I drink vodka, buddy, it's not like anything else. I pour about 1/3 of a fifth in a cup. You know what I mean? So I wanted a big cup.
I need a cough drop, but drinking this with a cough drop would not work well at all. So Lisa, what are you drinking? This is our standard show ATF check. So let us know what you're drinking. We went down to 0 watchers. Maybe she disappeared on us there, but
she went to grab her Solo.
She went to grab her drink. Either that or she's like, nah, he's drinking vodka out of a plastic cup. I'm out of here. Oh no, now we got 2 people. I don't know who's here, but we got 2 eyeballs up there. But anyways, I didn't even get that. So I'm drinking out of this. I got a Gun Rights Policy Conference because it's got the Second Amendment on it. I'm not going to let you read it all. Water on the rocks. You're just such a health freak, apparently. But no, tonight I'm drinking Evan Williams Single Barrel.
Ooh, nice.
Yep, barreled in 2013 and was bottled barreled in March the 6th, 2013, bottled on September the 1st, 21. So I already figured it out because I didn't want to math in public. That's 8.5 years it was in the barrel, and it's single barrel. So I always give a little bit of lesson with these. Evan Williams is one of the earliest bourbon producers in the country, and he immigrated from Wales. He's a Welshman, Kyle. He immigrated from
like
Wales.
him.
Yep. See, Kyle's a Welshman, but he gets mistaken for Native American because his last name is Featherwolf.
Boy, if Chris
It's not.
could hear that joke.
It's not. But it's not. But we had a friend. We had a friend that just read his name wrong the first time she met him, and that's what she put was Featherwolf because his name kind of at a glance you could see that. So, anyways, he's not Native American. He's Welsh, and he's not Kyle Featherwolf either. So, but anyways, Evan Williams was a Welshman, immigrated to Louisville, and became one of the largest figures. Hey, Kelly, good seeing you. Thanks for being here. And became one of the largest movers and shakers, so to speak, in Louisville in the late 1700s. He was town council. The legend goes that one of the ways he won so much influence in the town is on the town council. He would bring a bottle of bourbon to every meeting. And so he was very popular, tended to get a lot of things done. That politics would probably work a whole lot better if they all. Can you imagine Congress, all 583 of them showing up with a bottle of bourbon? That'd make C-SPAN fun to watch.
I think we get a lot more done.
or not done. I actually appreciate it when they don't do anything. I think that's generally better than what they do. But in any case, yeah, so we got some Evan Williams single barrel here. Single barrel means that they don't take a batch of barrels like their small batch collection. They take 20 barrels, mingle all the we call it juice, mingle all the juice out of those barrels, and then bottle the mixture of, say, 20 selected barrels will be a small batch. But a single barrel is exactly that. It's just one barrel emptied into bottles. And so you may get a different single barrel than I get. Like, for instance, this was the single barrel 2013 batch, but it's barrel number 1047. If you got barrel 1046, you may have a significant different taste in yours. And these are only right around usually $30. So they win award after award after award all the time and are relatively inexpensive and a great way for someone that wants to get into understanding single barrels and different bourbons and so forth. And Evan Williams is, he was a pretty big somebody in Louisville. Literally built Louisville in the terms of he commissioned buildings and was a stonemason and helped actually build them. So pretty cool guy. Heaven Hill owns the brand now. So it's their flagship brand. It is now. This Kyle shocked me when I was checking it out because I did a little research for the show because my memory is not the greatest. But it is the number 2 selling bourbon on the planet.
That bottle you have right there?
No, not the single barrel. Just Evan Williams, the black label.
No kidding.
Yep, is the number 2 selling bourbon on the planet. And the theory goes, their marketing idea that they did, and apparently it seems to work, is it's a square bottle with a black and white label. Right? So in looks, it was meant to confuse people that it's Jack Daniels-ish. Right? Then in price, I mean, this is from what I've been taught, this is still the rule. Whatever Jim Beam is in a store, Evan Williams will be to the penny half as much. That's their plan.
Having carried that second job there for a little while, man, I would say that's accurate.
Okay, cool. So my classes in Whiskey University, my second bachelor's degree is in the Bourbon Capital Region. And the Bourbon Capital Region is Bardstown. So this is one of them that's in my major, so to speak. Heaven Hill brands. They have a class all about the Heaven Hill brands called All About the E's. And I forgot all the E's, but it's Evan Williams, Elijah Craig, and some other ones are all E's owned by Heaven Hill. So it's a class all about that. So kind of cool. Kelly's got some family there. Her godson's near Louisville. It's from what I've seen, Louisville, I kind of like the city. Louisville, Lexington, I like them all. I haven't been to one I haven't liked. Ashland's kind of but other than yeah, we'll take what we can get here, right?
Because it's Larry County-esque.
It is very. It's the upper classy Larry County.
Mm-hmm.
It's Larry's bigger brother. But tonight, I wanted to talk about self-defense. And if you've ever been taught self-defense or buy a book on the law of self-defense or anything like that, even somebody like me who knows quite a bit about it, it's just not as cut and dry as the way they explain it isn't as easy as I think they can make it for the average person. Now, there's a reason it says not legal advice all over the place here, and it will continue to say that.
Because it's not.
Yeah. Lisa says, I'm going to have to start just telling you some drink that I'm having.
Make it up. We'll roll with it.
Yeah, we'll roll with it. Yeah, you're not on camera. Yo, Braden. Braden's here. Braden, your nickname is Big Country, right? Braden likes telling me all about his attempts or successes, I guess, at learning guitar just recently. He can play Smoke on the Water and some Nirvana and some other guy. Yeah, Braden, that's country. Okay. She has a white belt in Kung Fu. I'm not sure what the deal is there. But anyway, so if you read a book, if you get a book on the law of self-defense, it's going to go into motive and means and all this kind of stuff, right? And Kyle, you can say, "Hey, Legicator, good to see you, bro."
Hey,
we're about to talk about the self-defense and the way a concealed carrier, a defender, or other person that's going to defend themselves, how they can think about it. Kind of the stuff that stupid phone kung fu. Okay. Well, that may apply here. I don't know. The law of when you have deadly hands, how that works. That's why we say this is not legal advice. Consult your attorney. I was wondering what kung fu was supposed to be. Oh yeah, send you a link in the chat. Let me see. Almost forgot how to. Well, not almost. I think I've forgotten how to do that. Let me shoot, Chad.
Oh boy, you got him now, Chad.
Invite. There we go. Copy. Boom. I am not quite clueless. It just takes me a while to find the clue. So yeah, going to talk about how we, as your average person, non-law enforcement and non-lawyers, can think about how and when we can defend ourselves, how this works, how this can work in your brain in the heat of the moment, how you can live a life. Hey, Fubar, good seeing you, man. Been a couple of weeks, I believe. How you can look in terms of self-defense in a way that allows you to live your life in a way that you don't have to worry about ending up the bad guy, and how you don't have to think a bunch of law or even try to in the heat of the moment when you may need to defend yourself. That's how I teach this, or when I used to teach concealed carry a lot. And this is basically going to be probably 70 to 80% of the exact same lecture. How you doing, Chad?
What's going on, guys?
What's going on, bud?
Not much, man. We just got through talking about some whiskey and,
No, not you.
Yeah. Tonight's Evan Williams single barrel. You missed that. So we got some Evan Williams single barrel there. He's not looking.
Okay.
He's not paying.
Is that a what is that another one of your ryes? I'm just curious.
No, this is a bourbon.
Okay.
Yep, the cheaper version. Let's see. Lisa says, okay, tonight I'm drinking duck fart shots. Wow. Wow. Okay. All right. I'm not sure what to say about that. If you could send the recipe, maybe I'll know what to say. I don't think I ever want to drink something that's called that, though.
Hi, Miss Kelly.
Anyways, I was just telling him, Chad, that I was going to go over. Basically, you've heard me teach before. This will be basically the way the Attorney General's booklet for concealed carriers explains it. and then I add my other extra stuff that I know. Just wanted to go through those, and that's why it says not legal advice all over creation here tonight. I was just explaining to them because
absolutely
it's not legal. This is somebody who understands a few things explaining to other people who may or may not understand those same few things. That's all. And if you want serious advice, you got to go pay for it somewhere. So, like my dad always said, you get what you pay for, and this show is free. So there we go. So let's see here. Let's talk about. Okay, let's
Hey, Fubar.
Blue Bear, what's up?
Let me.
Hey, Blue Bear.
Dang, we got sir.
It's getting busy, Tom. What are you trying to do?
Okay, I've lost. Okay, I'm figuring it out, guys. Nope, now it disappeared again. I'm trying to figure out how to get the comments up. They just keep disappearing on me. I'm clicking something too many times, I think. Okay, it's back, and I only clicked once.
Lisa, he gives me.
I give her a hard time for. I don't give you a hard time for drinking water. I said you're healthy. I said you're healthy. That's not.
The irony of that, though, is that just the other night on my stream, you and I were talking, and he was like, "What are you drinking tonight?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just drinking water," because like I usually don't even. I wouldn't mind having a nice like a sipping type whiskey around just for certain occasions to kick back and stuff. But I find that when I have beer, unless it's a really like a craft beer, but if I have just like regular, what I call drinking beer, like a Kroger type beer,
right.
Then I just sit down and drink. Yeah, I sit down and drink too many of them anyway. So it's like I do a lot better off if I have like a Sam Adams or something. I can sit back and sip. You know what I mean, and just kind of enjoy a beer.
Well, you know that. You know those beers. You can have those like Gatorade after a ruck, right? Your Coors Light and your Miller Lite. All those, there may as well be, and I always put it on my Snapchat story when I'm doing rucking and I'm putting that on my story. I always put because my place of work, I have a lot of those people follow me on Snapchat too. So I got to watch some of the stuff that I used to put on there, and so I will say that I can have a Miller Lite after a ruck because it's like having sex in a canoe. I don't explain what that means. I don't explain what that means, and I think some of them have figured it out. But what is the official drink for training for rucking? What drink goes well with sweat? Well, I'll tell you, when I was actually active duty, we would mix half Gatorade and half water because Gatorade pure is just way too thin and syrupy when you're doing some serious work like that. But now that I'm a civilian, I usually just put water in a bladder.
They have those zeros now, Tom. It's basically that. It's watered down regular Gatorade. It's not so syrupy and sugary. That's which, to me, honestly, in all the training I've done in my life, there's nothing that works better than water, period. If you want to really hydrate yourself and actually like really not feel so heavy and actually be able to swallow, nothing's going to replace water.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't mind a little bit of electrolytes, but in the end, you don't quite need as much as you get in a Gatorade. But anyways, so then water, of course, is what I use most of the time now. I'll put it in the bladder, and that's only in summer. I go out here, unless I'm deciding I'm going to do some insane distance or whatever, which I haven't in a while, I'll get water when I get home. I'm okay. I figure if I'm going to dehydrate that quick, I've already screwed up really bad.
Now, do you carry a bladder normally when you do?
Like in the cooler months, it's in my ruck right now. It's not filled. Mm-hmm. I've got it all cleaned out. It's got water absorber stuff in it, so it doesn't get nasty. Mm-hmm. But
icky.
Yeah, I carry it. But only in the summer when it's warm do I actually put anything in it, or if I'm going on a bigger distance.
When we do the bike rides and stuff, when we do the mountain bike rides, we will a lot of times. We'll take the hydration bladders or something with us, and they still don't last long. And when it's hot, man, you're gonna burn through that so fast. It's amazing.
Kelly says make some sweet potato vodka. It's antioxidants.
It's like the old saying. I had a buddy of mine that used to say, I'd say, "Man, are you drinking vodka again?" He goes, "Well, yeah, but see, I'm canceling it out because I'm mixing it with orange juice, and orange juice is healthy." Logic.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. So yeah, Blue Bear. What we were going to talk here is I was going to talk self-defense. Way that a self-defender
Hey,
can think
Terry.
about it. Hey Terry, good seeing you. Going to talk about
Hey.
how us peasant folk, not you cool blue line dudes, have to think about in terms of self-defense, and that's cool. That's not a put down. That's as you heard me say when me and you first met, and you didn't quite understand what I meant originally. Was we have to think different. You know, you have different considerations on a lot of
Sure.
legal issues, and a lot of cops, not all of them, a lot of cops go right into law enforcement right after high school, and they've never been really much of their life an adult having to think like a civilian, and
Right.
it is different. So you know, those of you that haven't been in my classes, I explained that there's three different sort of categories of thinking in our law, and that is military, as far as use of force goes, law enforcement, and civilians. And all three of them have different considerations, different missions, different things our society has said, yeah, that's okay for you to do. If I do it the way I'm supposed to do, I'll be cool. If Chad does it the way I'm supposed to do, he's probably going to lose his job. He's likely not going to break any laws doing it my way, but he's going to be a poor law enforcement officer. If I do it the way he's supposed to do it, I definitely run afoul. I run close to being over the line in some legal aspects, and based on the circumstances, I may end up being the bad guy because I've done what, you know, not saying for sure. I'm just saying I can't do it the way he does it and expect the same results as if I do what I'm supposed to do. And if Chad does what the military does, well, then he's probably going to run afoul of the law, and he's definitely going to lose his job because he's probably in jail. But if the military does it my way or his way, now we got a whole different. So we each have three different ways of doing things, and that leads to different ways of thinking, different equipment, different decision making. Like if I deal with somebody and they start running away, I shouldn't chase them. Not a good idea. Chad kind of has to, one way or another. You know, he's got to deal with the situation. I don't have to. You know, military can shoot first and figure some stuff out later. Well, he can't do that. So it's very different ways. And so I took the original version of this that I taught in CCW classes for years, is just right out of the Attorney General's booklet. And the state of Ohio requires anyone applying for a concealed carry license to go through that booklet, and at least you have to attest that you've read it. Well, when I showed up in the county here, when I moved back home, when I showed up in the county and I wanted to start teaching concealed carry, I had to go down to the sheriff's office and say, hey, I'm certified. Here's my certification for teaching and all this stuff. One of the things I had to do was sign an affidavit saying that I would teach that book, that I would teach what was in it. So all of my classes had this lecture, and I've run this lecture by several attorneys over the years, and they really didn't want to hear me give a small lecture, but I made them listen to it, and all of them said not a thing. I've never been corrected. So I'm pretty confident that this is pretty decent information for you. So let's see here. Let me point number one. Okay. Wow, that switched. That was so seamless. I didn't even know it happened. Nope, not private chat. I'll get there, man. I click enough buttons. I'll get the right stuff. So I'm going to teach this from a generic perspective. This is not really state specific because our concept of self-defense in America is based on English common law. So there's like gigantic overlap on all 50 states about what's really going on. And the first thing is you cannot be at fault, right? So Kyle goes out on Black Friday because his girl makes him go out on Black Friday to shop. I don't think that's true, but for this story, we're going to talk about it. And she really wants something for the kids, right? And somebody's about to get the last one. So Kyle gets up there and lays a block on the lady about to grab it, knocks her out of the way and grabs it. Well, next thing you know, an altercation ensues. And let's say she escalates it to deadly force. In other words, she takes the force from shouting to maybe she starts throwing punches. Even though Kyle may not be at fault for starting the violence, he's at fault for the altercation beginning. And I've had this confirmed by several attorneys that this even means a verbal altercation. So somebody gets your parking spot when you're trying to park at the grocery store, and you decide to stick your head out the window and start yelling at them over a parking spot. If something happens that causes that to escalate up to deadly force, it doesn't mean you're a murderer, but it does mean you will not be able to use a self-defense claim. Let me explain a little bit about what a self-defense claim is in court. So let's say something happens and you've been charged. You don't get to go in court and just stand up and say, but it was self-defense. Black Friday at any Walmart, absolutely. So you don't get to just stand up in court and say, by the way, it was self-defense. That's not it's the way it works in TV. And I'm not saying it's never said, but I'm saying in general, the way this works is you have to let the judge know and the prosecution know that you are going to use the affirmative defense as your defense. And affirmative defense means you're going to say, yes, I did it, but I have an excuse. And here's my excuse. In self-defense, you're saying I'm going to use the affirmative defense of self-defense, meaning, yes, I did shoot. I did do this violent act with deadly force, but I am justified and excused because I was defending myself. So that's what an affirmative defense means. The other one that we hear commonly used is temporary insanity. Yes, I did it, but I was temporarily not in my normal faculties. But you have to say you're going to do that. Then the judge gets to decide, and as far as I know, this is pretty much all states. I'm sure there are some exceptions, but in general, then the judge gets to decide. He'll look at the evidence that both sides kind of thing. And if he believes you are more likely than not to win on that, he'll allow it. If in his mind or her mind, the judge believes you won't be successful in your assertion of that defense, then you won't even be able to use it or mention it. So it's very important that you understand the way that we civilians, we people, can behave that automatically puts us way ahead in terms of not having self-defense disproven, because the burden of proof is on the prosecutor. You don't have to prove self-defense. Now, for those of you that believe you do in the state of Ohio, that was true until last year. I believe it was last year or the year before.
Last year.
Flies. Yeah.
Last year.
So there used to be taught in law school the Ohio exception in self-defense, because Ohio was the only state in all 50 where the person saying it was self-defense, they had to prove their case. The prosecution had no burden. However, that's now been struck down, and Ohio is just like all the other 49 states. All 50 now are the same, in that once you assert self-defense and the judge allows it, it's then up to the prosecution to prove you didn't do it correctly. They got to prove you're the bad guy. Past June, that's what I was thinking, but I wasn't positive. I couldn't remember if it was 21 or 22.
Yeah, it was just
time just
last
flies.
year. Kelly said, put in your card anyway, then wait for her to turn her back and grab and run.
There you go. Okay, I'm not so
she's
sure that
Black Friday shopping before, apparently.
Yeah, that's funny. Make my day laws. I will mention other states towards the end of this, because the way I'm going to teach it applies everywhere. And even though you may know legal stuff other than what I know, trust me, at the end of this, that will make sense. What I'm going to teach will apply everywhere on the planet. So, one, you cannot be at fault. So once you've said, I'm going to use a self-defense claim, and the judge has said, yep, you can use self-defense, the prosecution now has to prove that you were at fault. So the language flips here, right? So you have to not be.
Can I interject?
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick?
I wasn't even sure if you were still here. Go ahead.
Yeah, any time that what he's talking about isn't simply just going into the courtroom and making a motion with the court. Usually when this type of thing applies to these high profile type cases or like very violent cases, this is not going to be a one day going to the judge and just saying, hey, it was self-defense because of this. He's going to go back. He's going to have this may take several times in a courtroom or several times in a law library somewhere where you're meeting with the judge or your attorney's meeting with the judge and the prosecutor's meeting with the judge. And it's going to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And basically prosecution is going to try to get that thrown out. Their job, right, if they're really intending on prosecuting, is they're trying to say, judge, look, this is not reasonable, because there's that word, and you'll hear me say that word all the time. You're going to apply it to the reasonableness. And he's going to try to say, this is not reasonable. because Kyle literally went there and seen this poor little old lady. Have you seen this victim, Kyle, or Your Honor? That type of thing. They're going to do what they can to make it look the other way, and it's not going to be so simple. So he's going through the fast version of it, but in the reality is it's going to be a pain in the butt. I promise.
Well, yeah. Well, the perspective I teach it from, Chad, is how we can think. So
Sure.
I tell them some of the wheels and cogs of the court system because, like you just did for me there, I want them to know it's not as simple as they think. However, if they think right, if they think correctly, they won't have to know any law. That's sort of the beauty of this is, for one. So what can you learn by understanding now that you've just listened to that? You cannot be at fault, and that you can't even start it verbally. If you start it verbally, that doesn't mean if something goes bad, you'll be guilty of murder, but it does mean you can't, you won't be able to use a self-defense claim. You'll end up being like manslaughter or involuntary. It'll end up being something lesser than murder, but you won't just get off scot-free. In order to use self-defense, the things I'm going to talk about tonight have to be true. Now that we've flipped the language, they have to not be proven that they aren't true. Right.
An analogy that I use, an analogy that I use at work when people are talking about that, and you'll have the same. Then let's just downplay a little bit from firearms to just basic fighting. Right. Guy says, "Hey, my neighbor Billy Bob, he looked at me the other day when he come in there, and I'm pretty sure he run over my grass, and I know he did. So I went over and told him, 'Hey, you son of a bitch, you run over my grass.' And you know what? He punched me right in the damn nose. I want to file charges on him." Well, did you go over there? Yeah. You were provoking this. Have you ever poked a hornet's nest and got stung by a bee? Okay, there's once again, that's applying that reasonableness. And to say you can't be at fault, meaning that if you see somebody cutting off in the aisle at Walmart, and you say, "F you," or "Ruck you, mother rucker," then guess what? You just literally escalated a situation to now your self-defense is out the window. And once again, I am not a lawyer by any means.
That's just legal advice.
Absolutely. I'm the last person. Tom can give you a lot better legal aspect than I can, but neither one of us are practicing attorneys. But the reason I'm saying that is I'm just running it through the filter of what my experience is from.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it's all valuable. Let's see. Fubar says, "Did you see the video of that guy that shot the dude robbing the restaurant? He had a CCW, but he still took off after he killed the robber. What if any charges can be made on a Good Samaritan for leaving?" As long as he didn't do anything wrong, I don't know if that state has some sort of requirement to report an incident. Other than that, I don't know. They would have to prove that he did. Now, the guy, if we're talking about the same video, come to find out, the guy he killed had a toy gun. But we'll get to that aspect here next. That's in number 2. But one. So Kyle.
Austin, real fast. Austin's trying to ruck around. He's trying to ruck around down there in the chat. He said, "Wouldn't saying mother rucker be protected under free speech?"
Sure. As long as somebody's trying to prosecute you for saying the wrong thing, then yeah, we're going to be okay. Well, and there's also, and this is going a little bit into the weeds here, but there's also issues that people don't understand of guilt versus innocence, or guilt versus not guilty. You can be guilty, and then all the things you want to say in defense of yourself are all things for sentencing. They're not whether or not you're guilty or not. Yeah, yes. You may have had a lot of good reasons for how things turned out there, but you're still guilty of it. Now we're going to use all those things you want to say to yourself about yourself as matters in mitigation. In other words, instead of 10 years, oh, okay, this happened. Oh, this happened. Next thing you know, you're down to 2 years, just as an example, because all these other mitigating circumstances. Like you were raised by wolves and violence is your only answer for things, right? I don't know.
To clarify too, freedom of speech is only freedom when you're addressing your government.
Right. The government can't stop your speech.
Yeah, you have free speech, but like my shirt said, when our little friend Maria, when she got all mouthy and I was going to adjust her attitude, Maria de Castro, when she started that stuff, freedom of speech gives you the right to be able to say something, but it does not relieve you from the consequences of pissing somebody off.
Right. Freedom of speech, not freedom from consequences. I think that's what Terry was saying. So, and here's what I've been trying. I keep interrupting myself. If we know you cannot be at fault, how does that mean you need to live your life, Kyle?
I'm sorry. No, I wasn't listening.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, I would say now that we've explained number one,
Mm-hmm.
right? You cannot be at fault if you want to have a proper self-defense claim. How's that going to help you make your decisions about living life?
Maybe I'm not understanding the question. I mean, I guess.
Okay. No, I'm just saying that. Yeah, don't be. Yeah. Terry says, "Don't be an asshole." So all those little arguments in the parking lot and all that stuff, you got to let them flow off your back, especially if you're carrying deadly force on you.
I love that. I love that you're saying this, Tom. And I've heard you say this before. This is nothing new to me, but I love that you teach this specifically, because this goes unsaid a lot by instructors that actually teach concealed carry. And I'm not down. I'm not downing anyone. I don't want to sound like I'm downing anyone, but the reality is, if you are carrying, then you have a great responsibility. You have a tremendous responsibility. And a lot of times the things that you might have been a little bit more tempered by before, you really just got to let it go. You just kind of got to stay away from any opportunity for trouble whatsoever. If you know there's a bad street down the road, guess what? Go to the next one. Just because you have a gun.
It's about wisdom and prudence, man. Prudence.
It's knowing,
once you're carrying deadly force on you, it's a whole other story.
I had plenty in the classes too, Tommy. Probably, I'm sure there's more than one that stands out in your mind as well. Just comments that are made. It's not the Wild West. You can't base concealed carry today off of a Western you saw when you were a kid. We're not living in times where someone calls you a bad name and you just shoot them in a tavern. You can't get in a brawl out in the street at noon and just duel it out. Like you said there, Chad. I mean, you can't. I think what happens a lot of times too is people are in the mindset of, well, it's okay, I'll just take my gun in case something bad happens. Well, if you think something bad might happen, you should probably just avoid the situation.
Yeah. Unless you have some specific reason to be going or doing to that thing or place.
Unless there's no other option or no.
Yeah. Well, your kid's driving and they break down somewhere. And you're like, that is not a good area. So you take your gun, you go. There are times when it makes more sense. But then there are times, or say going to a concert or something where you can't even take it in with you, but the parking lots tend to be a little bit rowdy. Okay, maybe I want it at least near me in a parking lot, so I take it and it's in my vehicle or something along those lines. There are some reasons, but in general, I hear people all the time. You'll say something, I'll be like, that's okay, I'll just take my gun. I'm like, well, then why are you going? But so number one, you can't be at fault. If you are living a life where you like arguing with people and you like fighting over TVs on Black Friday and you like you're one of these people, you're like Jerry Springer candidate, right? You want to get on there, you love drama. You may want to think twice about carrying deadly force on you, because it definitely makes the likelihood of you spending some time in doing yard time more.
I think a prime example would be kind of piggybacking off of Chad's little example there. You're going.
Hey, Blueberry, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it. Go get your sleep.
See you, Blue.
See you, Blue. You got Billy Bob going, next door because Harry ran over his grass there, and he didn't want to get punched in the nose again, so he's going to take his pistol this time to scare him.
Exactly.
If he threatens him.
Right.
Exactly. Prime example. That's probably the best. That's the best way to describe it right there. Well, last time he smacked me in the damn face, I'll show him this time. Yeah, that's definitely immediately.
That's the example we're talking about.
Exactly.
So I'm going to go on to point number 2. This is the second thing that must be true of you, and the prosecution must not be able to successfully prove it's not true, because the burden of proving this is on them. You don't have to say anything. You just say, I'm using self-defense. The judge approves that affirmative defense. And then the prosecution must not be able to prove this isn't true of you. So,
hey Tom, real fast, do you know if that applies to? Is that just? Once again, if I'm, I don't mean to get off, but do you know if that applies to just lethal encounters? Is there any language in there that specifies that the burden of proof that has just been removed? How you said that the defense, essentially, you were responsible for your own burden of proof. Is that just
We used to be in Ohio, yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that just been changed for lethal encounters, or is it any time with a firearm or dangerous ordinance or any? Because
I'm sorry. When you say legal, I'm assuming you mean you can't be doing illegal things.
No. When you said that the burden of proof had recently been removed from our shoulders, and I say ours as in citizens' shoulders, and it's now in the hands of prosecution, which should have been all along, obviously, and it is in every other state anyway. Is that just in Ohio? Is that just referring to firearm related things or lethal firearm encounters? That now that the burden of proof's on the state, or is that all?
Yeah, that's just self-defense. It's not about using any implement of any. It's just when you assert self-defense as an affirmative defense. Our law used to say specifically the burden was on the person asserting it. Now it says, so yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with a gun or a knife or anything specifically. It's just the burden of proof for self-defense claim. Now the prosecution must prove it's not true.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just thinking.
That's good. But that's after a judge has said, okay, you can use it, and that's a hurdle that most people don't even know exists. Most people, watch too much TV and they think you just get to stand up and go, but it was self-defense. Doesn't work that way. So number 2, this is I like teaching this part because it's got a lot of cool words that look simple, but they have really great ideas behind them. You must have an honest and reasonable belief of suffering serious, imminent serious bodily harm or death. So I'll hit each word real quick. Honest means you can be wrong, but it must be an honest belief. So in other words, let's say someone's using a toy gun, like that guy we just discussed a little bit ago, right? They're using a toy gun, but they've hidden the orange tip or whatever makes it look like a toy, because there's so many guns now that are plastic anyways. So it looks like a real gun. You think you're about to die. You're wrong, but you think you're about to. So that's what it means by honest there. The next serious word, Chad's favorite word, reasonable. In this case, here's the way I've always explained this in class, Chad. So let's say you got a neighbor and you've had a family feud going on for a generation and a half, 2 generations. They hate your guts. You hate their guts. And they got an 8-year-old little boy, and he's over there and you're out mowing your grass. He just got through hearing them over in the kitchen explain what a piece of crap you and all your family are. And you're out there mowing the grass, minding your own business. And all of a sudden, this 8-year-old boy comes running out the door and he's like, I'm going to kill you, blanket, blanket, blanket. And he picks up a stick and he comes running at you. So you just pull your gun out and you're like, bam, bam, bam. And you drop the kid, right? That's reasonable?
Rucked that kid. Rucked that little kid. He rucked around and found out.
He found it. So no, that's not reasonable. It's not a reasonable reaction and it's not a reasonable belief. Nothing about that's reasonable. Now, let's imagine that 8-year-old boy instead is a 28-year-old man, and he's got an AR he's running at you with saying, I'm going to kill you. Now, would your reaction be reasonable? Absolutely it would, right? And that's what we mean by reasonable. So you must have an honest, you can be wrong, but it must be an honest belief and a reasonable belief, right? You can't say, well, I'm pretty sure that 8-year-old boy, he got abducted by aliens the night before, and it wasn't even him anymore. It was an alien. Okay, that's not reasonable. It's another non-reasonable. So you got to have an honest and a reasonable belief of suffering. In other words, it's about to happen to you. Imminent, which means it's got to be now. It can't be someone that says, I'm going to go home and get my gun, and I'm going to come back and kill you, or I'm going to kill you tomorrow. No, it can't be that. It's got to be it's happening now. So you have to have an honest belief. You have to have a reasonable belief. That belief must be that it's imminently going to happen to you, as in any given second. This is about to happen. Serious bodily harm means it's been determined in court to mean like amputation, crushing, maiming wounds, acid to the face. Rape is considered serious bodily harm enough to justify deadly force. Lots of things like that. And then, of course, death. So you've got to have an honest and reasonable belief that serious bodily harm or death is about to happen right now. So
yeah, but what if they spit on me?
You mean they broke the arm? They broke the honor code.
Yeah.
I'll
spit.
I'll tell you what. There's actually a little of. I think there was an appellate decision that actually was applied because an officer had charged a person for spitting on him and charged him with felonious assault. Okay. Which obviously that's why he can, because I think he spit in his eye or whatever. And the court shot that down and said that's not reasonable, considered that would be the felony assault aspect of it. So I would assume that no, that's probably not going to apply. If it's going to be in the same, I'm sure the courts would probably refer back to something like that to determine.
Right. I think there's even been some case law, and I couldn't speak of any serious nature on it, about people that have intentionally tried spreading AIDS or other communicable diseases by spit and other means, or at least trying to get the person to believe they were going to, and then that person reacted. So I know there's case law out there. I think there's actually contradictory case law that's never made
I think there is too. Actually.
Yeah.
I think the one that I'm referring to is and I may be, gosh, I'm terrible at remembering this stuff, but I'm almost sure it was out of Cincinnati. It was literally in Ohio. It was an actual ruling, I believe. So, and once again, I may be wrong, but I'll ask Chili.
Hey, Fubar, let me hold your question off there till we finish this part, and then I'll definitely get to that. Remind me if I don't. So once again, it can't be your fault. In other words, you are a victim of the circumstances. That's a better way to think about it. If anything like this ever happens to you, if you want to use self-defense, you'd better be a victim of the circumstances. You didn't start it and you didn't contribute to it. And you have an honest belief that you are about to die or suffer some serious bodily harm right now. And your belief is also reasonable. And number 3, this is where we get a little bit controversial here, because I'm going to teach it the way I teach it. I'll explain why as part of this. Duty to retreat. We in our 3 local states here, gentlemen, speaking to Kyle and Legicator here, we do not have duty to retreat in any of our 3 local states of West Virginia, Kentucky, or Ohio. That has been removed from the element of self-defense in all of our states, all of our 3 local states here. However, I still teach duty to retreat. Now, I was for getting rid of duty to retreat because I don't want 12 people in a box deciding if I made the right decision. But if you want to live and you want to stay out of jail, it is still good for you to think this way. That's why I said I try to teach my classes how to think so that they don't have to know law. So 1, don't be at fault. Don't go around being an asshole, as Auditor said. Don't go starting stuff. Be non-confrontational, as I think it was Lisa or Kelly said. That's how you behave. Behave that way. Only react with deadly force. And by the way, we aren't talking just guns here.
Miss Carolyn.
This is guns, knives, ball bats, your car. You're cutting trees down and you got a chainsaw in your hand. Whatever. That's all deadly force. That's what we're talking about, is deadly force. So 1, don't be a jerk. Don't start anything. It has to be you're a victim of the circumstances. 2, you honestly believe you are about to die or suffer some serious bodily harm right now. And 3, which is not legal anymore, but I still say think this way, and that is you have a duty to retreat. Now, duty to retreat never meant, even when we had it, it never meant you had to turn and run. That is not what it meant legally. It did mean if you have any other options other than using deadly force, use those first. Even then, you have to have options other than deadly force that don't increase the danger to yourself, even when it was the law. So it was never a you must turn and run or you must literally try to exit. That was never what it meant. It meant that if that's an option, then they expected you to take it. But it also meant using less than lethal. It meant going hand to hand if that was appropriate. It meant running away if appropriate. It might mean closing a door if appropriate, right? What it meant was take other options first. So what I'm saying is I want good people. I want law-abiding people that literally have no intent to harm others to be able to think this way in a formula that's like this in their head. 1, they're living a life where they're not starting stuff. So they got 1 conquered. 2, only go to deadly force if there are no other options. That's the way it used to be in Ohio, and it still is in a lot of states. And I think ethically and morally, that's the way it ought to be anyways. That's the way we ought to behave. Only go to deadly force if you have no other options. And that's the point of duty to retreat and why I still teach it. Because here's the deal. If that's the way you if that's a template in your head, head when you carry a gun, then you don't need to know the law of the state you're in. Because people around here, we go 3 local states. We go to, if you live in Larry County, you're only allowed to vacation in Smoky Mountains, Myrtle Beach, and somewhere in Florida. In Las Vegas, if you're the upper classy of Larry County. So that's all you're really allowed to go to. But how many states do you go through when you drive to Myrtle Beach? How many states do you go through on your way to Florida?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you go down to Branson? Or if you're going to a ball game, maybe Lord knows where, if you got tickets somewhere and you're going somewhere, not for a whole vacation, but just a ball game or whatever, you don't need to know who the prosecutor is in that county. You don't need to know the state law. You don't need to know all these little idiosyncrasies, right? All you need to know is I ain't going to pick anything. I ain't going to start anything. I'm only going to go to guns or knife or whatever else deadly force I have if I have absolutely no other choice and I can't stop it, right? As long as you think that way, I don't need to know the laws everywhere. Because, and let me get there. We'll be here just a second. Let me talk about defense of others for a second. In Ohio and in most places, and there are some slight differences you got to be aware of. But if me and Kyle we're road tripping, right? I know Kyle. He's been a friend all my life. He's a great guy. I know what he tends to do, what he doesn't do. And we've been road tripping, hanging out all day, like my uncles and my dad used to do, go groundhog hunting, basically drive around Lawrence County all day. And it's time he's going to pay for gas this time. So we pull into a gas station, and he's going to pay for gas. And I say, hey, man, what do you want to drink? So I go in the back of the gas station. I'm getting our drinks, and I turn around and I look. Kyle's standing in line because there's some dude, I don't know, he's writing a check or got lottery tickets or whatever, but it's taking him forever. So Kyle's standing in line. Well, there's a guy walks up behind Kyle, pulls a gun out, puts it to the back of Kyle's head. Okay, here's how defense of others works. I can defend others if all the things I just said must be true of me for self-defense, if those things are true of Kyle, right? I can retreat. I can go out the back of the place. I can hide or whatever. I mean, I'm just making stuff up here at the moment. But Kyle can't. Kyle, one, didn't start it. And I know he didn't start it because I know what he was doing just previous to this. He didn't start it. And if he knew what was happening, he would have an honest and reasonable belief of serious bodily harm or death occurring right now. So because he has a proper self-defense, I can use his self-defense for him, even though he's not aware that he needs it. So that's when you can go to defense of others, is when the others are innocents and they're also going to suffer serious bodily harm or death imminently. Now, Kentucky's different. And I specifically go into this because we are, just a couple miles from Kentucky where I sit. Kentucky's defense of others law specifically says the honest part where you can be wrong and still have a proper self-defense. That's not true in Kentucky if you are defending others. So if this guy that had the gun to the back of Kyle, if we were in Kentucky and the guy had the gun to the back of Kyle's head, but it was an airsoft gun and it was an old buddy of Kyle's that he used to go airsoft or paintballing with, right? And this guy sees Kyle go and he's like, I'm going to get him back for that last time he shot me when we were out there playing, and he's going to, now maybe he's a rude dude, maybe a dumbass. So he's going to shoot him at point blank range with an airsoft, but I don't know that. In Kentucky, if I'm wrong, I don't have a defense of others claim. It'll be some version of involuntary manslaughter or something like that. So it's very important in Kentucky. You've got to actually know that the force being used against whoever you're defending is real. You're not allowed to be wrong if you're defending others. So that's defense of others. Castle doctrine. Castle doctrine essentially doesn't matter much in Ohio anymore because the duty to retreat's gone. So Castle doctrine said that you did not have a duty to retreat in your home or your vehicle. Now that applies pretty much by law anywhere you're legally allowed to be in the state of Ohio. I believe Kentucky and West Virginia are the exact same language or very, very similar. Anywhere you're legally allowed to be, you have no duty to retreat. And that's all Castle doctrine meant in Ohio. However, there have been no court decisions in Ohio to determine where that language underlaps or overlaps and how that works. So just be aware, Castle doctrine still technically exists in Ohio, but it kind of exists everywhere. So just keep that in mind. Consult an attorney if you really want to know the details there. One more thing, and then I will wrap this part up, and then we can talk some stories. Civil liability. What a lot of people don't understand is, let's assume you use self-defense properly, but you did it really sloppy so that you really look guilty. The shoot them on the porch, drag them in the house crowd. How many times you heard that, Chad?
Oh, I like the ones too that I hear that say when they call them, now if he comes over and comes to my house, he's bought and paid for, right? Okay.
I was like, I had those questions in CCW class, and I would say, no, your home isn't a free fire zone. That's not what it means.
Well, something else too to add, Tom, is we run everything through the human element, meaning that at any given time you're going to be judged, and I don't literally mean by a judge. I mean by a panel of your peers or a judge or however it may be, by humans. So there is a lot of variation within everything that can be considered. You could possibly get up there, and if you and he's going to get into civil liability, and I know where he's going with this, but trust me, it's going to be a pain in the arse if you have to use lethal force on somebody, and what you're going to getting ready to go through, and it's going to be expensive. That's just reality.
And that's kind of where I'm headed next. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to go too far, but I want to say that real fast.
No. So what almost nobody knows in terms of outside the legal field or law enforcement, and I'm not even sure law enforcement deals with this much because it's civil. But what a lot of people don't get is the burden of proof in a criminal case. Everybody in America that's ever watched TV knows is beyond a reasonable doubt. I think of beyond a reasonable doubt as 98, 99% proof. It's just so proven. You can make up doubts like maybe an alien did it, but it's not a reasonable doubt, right? I mean, that's pretty much what that means. So pretty much proven is the way I see it. There could be some debate there among different people, but I think it's like 98, 99% proof. However, by definition, you can be found civilly liable, which means money liable, right? Money liable with simply preponderance of the evidence. Preponderance of the evidence is by definition anything over 50% likelihood in the mind of a juror. So you just look like you're at fault. You could win the criminal part and not even be prosecuted, but lose the civil case. Now, here's the thing about a civil case. The local prosecutor has no say-so in it. It's up to let's say, in your self-defense incident, you ended up killing somebody. Well, it's going to be their survivors that can file the lawsuit on their behalf that you wrongful death suits, what this would be, right? Or if they survived, I don't know the exact title for what kind of suit that would be, but they would sue you for the injuries they incurred. Now, you looked good enough on the prosecutor. The prosecutor's like, no, I can't win with these facts, so we're not going to prosecute. But you can't stop Uncle Bob and Aunt Susie, the survivors, from filing lawsuits against you. And the local judge only has so much leeway in getting rid of those lawsuits. They got to be really frivolous for them not to drag you into court. And this could cost you easily $50,000, $100,000 just to defend yourself. And that's if you win. If you lose, we're talking death. We're not talking fender benders here, or a limb in your yard fell on the neighbor's tree type civil case, right? We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. And what a lot of people don't know is that they can, like in Ohio, for instance, I know for a fact that if you owe in a civil case, we can put your social security number in the lottery system. And you could win the lottery and all of your winnings go to whoever has a suit against you that won and you weren't able to pay. People know that OJ, for instance, that's a great example. OJ was acquitted on the criminal trial and was found liable in the civil trial.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
So he was, God, I want to say he was fined or they were awarded $125 million. And I'm pretty sure OJ, last I heard, has only paid 75. So I think the guy should use his fame to just make money as much as he can and get that paid off so he could possibly recover. But he apparently isn't that smart of a guy, but and kind of violent, I guess. But anyways, it's very possible that you could lose the civil suit and they can attach your retirement, your future stocks, bonds, anything you have coming in the future. They can attach all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. They are legally allowed any you've got for the rest of your life down to the official level of poverty. Right. So imagine you successfully defended yourself but you were so over the line and into what I call the gray area, where the prosecutor's like, we're not likely to win because it's not really beyond a reasonable doubt, even though I know this guy really screwed up. But the civil case wins against you, and you lose, say, $10 million. So we may not be OJ, Kyle, but you think you're going to make $10 million in your life to be able to hand to someone else?
Not in my life.
Yeah, they could put $1 million down, and I would be the same as in OJ's boat.
Mhm.
They could probably put $19.95 down on a special, and I'd be like, you gotta take payments.
Yeah.
This is where insurance comes in, guys, and I'm hoping Tom's getting ready to go with that. But there's actually that you definitely, if you're going to be a concealed carrier, you probably need to have insurance on that. And there's some pretty good organizations that actually.
Technically not insurance. I forgot the technical word. I don't think it's a word.
Yeah,
I think it's a.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I do. But yeah, I just want people to know that there is no insurance against criminal activity. Otherwise, criminals would just have great insurance policies. But so I forgot how they got to phrase it and how legally they got to do it. But he's right. So there's second call defense. There's what's the one me and you had, Kyle? Can't think of the name of it all of a sudden.
Law Shield.
Law Shield used to be
Texas
Texas Shield. Yeah, it used to be Texas Shield, and they expanded nationally. Last time me and Kyle researched all this, they were far and above the best one out there. And they have all kinds of variations on the policies that are not expensive. Some of them will have caps. So, for instance, and I can't remember which company, so I'm not going to say which one, but there are ones out there that you get into an altercation, and it's on December 30th, right? Or 31st. Let's say it's 31st. You were out at a New Year's Eve party. Something goes crazy, and it happens on December 31st. Guess what? Their $10 million limit they had on your criminal defense, that was a group amount. And they've already spent that on a couple other defendants all year. So you get nothing. There are companies like that. So you just want to make sure when you go with, I believe Second Call is not, and Law Shield definitely was not. Now, what they've done in the intervening 3 years since we were in business there, Kyle, I don't know. But anyways, yeah, research that. Chad is absolutely right. Get something to protect yourself. So if you're in a county that may have an anti-gun or anti-self-defender attitude and they want to prosecute you, you can get criminal defense. You can also get civil insurance so that if you lose, they'll pay out for you. But if you're going to be a self-defender, especially with a firearm, now Law Shield, it didn't have to do with firearms. You could defend yourself with a ball bat and they'll defend you. You could add your kids, Chad, on it was like an extra $3 a month or something. I forgot.
Hunting policy.
Yeah, you can add a hunting policy against poaching charges. You could add a couple bucks a month for your kids, and if they get charged with assault from a playground fight, they'll defend your
Wait
kid.
a minute. Did you just say poaching charges? So just theoretically, if you was to take a spotlight out and see a nice deer on the side of the road, and you were just overwhelmed with convenience at the time, and you wasn't able to restrain yourself, and there come Darren Abbott out of the woods. No.
You're asking for a friend, right?
And by the way, Miss Carolyn, I just sent you an email based on your earlier comment.
So,
real fast, Tom, I've got to run, buddy. I've got to run. I just wanted to hop on with you guys for a little bit and give a like and say hi to everybody and make sure that to keep watching and keep tuning in. Tom is always full of a lot of information, and his streams are a lot of fun. So make sure you stay tuned to him and enjoy your stream. And you guys have a great night.
Hey, thanks a lot, Chad. Thanks for stopping in. Appreciate you being here, man.
See you, buddy.
So here's the wrap up for the most part. Let's assume you are somewhere, anywhere. You don't need to ask me theoretical questions. You're somewhere and something begins happening that you are a victim of. You didn't start it. You didn't contribute to it. You didn't escalate the event, but it's happening to you and or someone you love, care about. You believe you or this other person is about to die right now. Not theoretical. I mean, it's happening, man. Right? Think about that. Seriously. And you've made the judgment maybe in a millionth of a second kind of deal, right? I'm not saying this is a ton of time. It's happening to you. You or someone you care about is about to die. You can't get away and you can't stop it. would you care about any law, any prosecutors, any of the other stuff that we tend to discuss in these discussions? Would you care about civil suits? Would you care about how much inconvenience it's going to be? I'm assuming, from the sake of teaching this for quite a while, that you're going to say no. None of those things are going to matter. And if you conduct yourself that way, then it doesn't matter. You're going to do what you got to do. And that's why I say, no matter which state you're in or where on the planet you may be, if you allow yourself to think in the template I just taught, you don't have to worry about law. I don't have to worry about which state I crossed into or even which country I crossed into, because the alternative is death for you or death for the other person you're defending. And that's the point. It's happening to you. You can't get away from it. You can't stop. And you or someone you care about is about to die. Nothing else really matters at that point. And that's exactly the way Ohio law used to be written. Our old self-defense in Ohio used to be based on an Ohio Supreme Court decision, gave us that 3-part test to determine proper self-defense or not. Now it's not a Supreme Court decision anymore. It's codified now. So the point is, only when you have no choice. When you have no choice, nothing else really matters. If you can sit back and go, should I, shouldn't I, blah, 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 then it's probably not the right time to use deadly force. Can't say that as a blanket statement. But in general, if you've got time to think, what should I do? Should I do this or this? Do the duty to retreat. If you've got other options, because like Chad just got through talking about, the amount of money, time, lost work, maybe jail time, bail, based on how you do bail, you may not even get 100% of that back at the right time, right? What is it? 10% goes to the bondsman, I believe, something like that. Anyways, if you follow that way of thinking, you don't have to worry about civil liability. You don't have to worry about going to jail. You don't have to worry about lawyers. You don't have to worry about because I presume your life would mean more than all of that, or the life of a loved one that you would protect. So don't be at fault. Make sure that you really believe you're about to die or something's going on and you're not being weird, like maybe it's a UFO or, one of the Highlander guys come back to life or a vampire or something. As long as these are reasonable beliefs and you believe you're about to die right now and you can't do anything to stop it and you can't get away, that's when you use deadly force. If you do it then, you're not going to care about the law because you had no choice. So that's the way I teach it in my classes, is not the way a lawyer would explain it to you. So once again, this is not legal advice. If you want legal advice, go to an attorney. This is advice based on the law, how to think as a self-defender that will keep you from running afoul of the law or give you the best circumstances if you have to. So that was the end of that. And if you want to read up on this, and I suggest you do, go to the State of Ohio Attorney General's website. You scroll down to the bottom where it says concealed carry stuff. You click there, then you go into the forms and publications part, and this book is in there. It's PDF. You can print it off, and you can scroll down the information. This is what I just taught, except for the practical ending I gave you. All this is in the Attorney General's booklet, stuff that I was required to teach. Hey, no problem, Terry. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because in the end, once you teach it, it's kind of a old duh moment for a lot of people. It's like, oh, only do it when I have no choice. That's how most people would behave anyways. And that's how most people can defend themselves without knowing anything about the law and still be okay. Because most law-abiding citizens are only going to do it when they had no choice anyways. But yeah, no problem, man. It's one of the things I was known for when I taught a lot. But I did have some stories here. Now, Fubar had the question, and I don't remember what it was now. So if you don't mind typing that again, Fubar, I will talk about it.
I'm going to find it here. I think I know which one you're talking about.
Balloons from China. Yeah, I mean, that's weird. That is so weird. No matter what's really going on, it's weird. I mean, what a small world we live in now, right? If they did it on purpose, they sent a balloon? Really? And if it's an accident like they claim, we can have accidental balloons from China. I mean, it's just all so weird. We're on literally the other side of the planet. I don't know. It just seems really silly in a serious, disturbing way to me.
Fubar's question, 9:55. Picking up your kid.
9:55.
Yep. Picking up your kid from school. You have your CCW on. You're not.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good. That's a good question. Saying you pick up your kid from school, you have CCW on you, not thinking school zones. Shooting breaks out, and you shoot the active shooter. You are allowed to have your gun in the car as long as you have the plastic in Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia, because that is the federal law. Federal law says in order to have a firearm in a school zone, you have to have your state's plastic concealed carry permit, license, whatever you call it in your state. So in this scenario, you've got your CCW on you, you have your gun, a shooter breaks out and you shoot the active shooter. I don't know. I couldn't speak to the exact law, and I'm not even going to try to. However, my guess would be that you haven't broken any law because you are defending others, period. However, if you had some sort of serious jerk of a local prosecutor, while you're being hailed as a hero by big chunks of your community and half of the nation, if they want to prosecute you for having a gun in an unauthorized zone, I guess they could. Listen, they can prosecute you if they want to, period, whether you broke the law or not. And that's why we go to court to prove you didn't. So, but what the law says, I couldn't tell you. My guess is that would not be illegal. Now, if you go inside the school, there's an argument to be had. I don't know. It's a really good one, the way you put it. Now, something I need to explain to people, because all three of our local states here, and did you know there are 24 permitless carry states now, Kyle? 24, dude. Almost half the country is permitless carry. I remember back when it was like 8 states, like a decade ago, 6.
And each one of them had their own variations of that law, though.
Yeah. Which is it, Vermont? It's Vermont that never, ever made it illegal, so it's just always been legal.
Always been legal, yeah. Nothing says you can't, so therefore you can.
Which is called?
Freedom.
Liberty. Clink, right?
Clink.
Freedom. Let me get down to the new comments so I can see what's being said there. Okay. They could prosecute you and they would lose the next election. Exactly. Which is exactly why it's likely not to happen. But you never know. Especially if it happens in an area that's not your, if you're somewhere else kind of deal. And this is, okay, there we go. There we go. Sorry, still trying to work with tech and get a little more proficient with this stuff, guys. God bless the Wild West called Wyoming. Absolutely. There are some states, though, that have much more restrictive firearms laws than you would expect. Texas being one. Everyone expected it was the Wild West for a long time. And it was way more restrictive than Ohio when I moved back home. And I began learning all this. So I think that was the only – hey, thanks, Terry, for sharing it on the community tab. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's it. The one thing. So we got these 3 local permitless carry states, right? And this would be true of any permitless carry. Yeah, ain't that the truth, Terry? Perfect practice makes perfect. But continuing to screw it up may be ingraining bad habits. I'm not sure. But permitless carry does not apply anywhere in the union on school property. Federal law takes precedent as of now. Federal law takes precedent and says if you are going to have a firearm in a school zone anywhere in America, you've got to have the plastic permit. If you carry the gun and you don't have the plastic permit and something goes wrong and the federal, you can be charged with a crime, even though the permitless carry applies from your state. So I said this to some people just recently. How many people do you think in our local area here, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Ohio, go through school drop off and pick up every day with a gun without their plastic, committing federal felonies? Lots of people.
But I couldn't tell you just people I know. I've got a bunch of kids, a bunch of daughters, but just by talking to parents and stuff, general conversations. Kids are involved with sports. Things come up. Firearms sometimes come up. With some of the ones I talked a little bit more, and you tell them things like that, and they're just blown away. So it's happening all over. And I'm sure our tri-state area is not the only
No.
the only area of those 24 with permitless carry.
Oh yeah, 24 states. People are carrying in school zones probably tens of thousands a day.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a couple stories here out of the even though the NRA ticks me off on a regular basis, there was a time where they didn't, and I became a life member. So I get this. And every month in the NRA's magazine, it has a section called The Armed Citizen there. And they have stories from around the country of real self-defense use. So this one, a man in Chicago was seated in his truck at nearly 6 a.m. on December 5th, 2022, smoking a cigarette with his window down, when a dark sedan pulled up next to him and two males got out while two remained in the vehicle. One man allegedly pointed a .45 caliber pistol with an extended magazine at his intended victim's head while demanding property, but the man fought back, grabbing the gun. The assailant called out for help from the others with him, at which point the armed citizen in the truck pulled out his own firearm and fired 3 rounds. He struck 2 of the males in their shoulders and 1 in the temple. The driver of the crime vehicle sped off despite his head wound. Got hit in the temple and still driving, sort of, but struck a fence, breaking the passenger's leg. That part literally made me laugh. So 2 guys are robbing him. He's like, bam, bam, shoots both of them, shoots the driver in the temple, and then the driver crashes, which then breaks the leg of the guy that didn't get shot. That is like, just here, have some karma all the way around, right? Everybody gets some karma. Everybody gets some karma. Let's see, where did that go? 3 of the perpetrators were charged with attempted robbery, while the 4th was still in the hospital. The vehicle was found to have been used in other robberies in the area as well. So, class, let's review, right? Did he start it? No. Did he escalate it? Did he make it worse when it came to him as maybe a verbal argument? Did he make it worse by pulling out a gun? No, he didn't escalate it either. Guy's putting a .45 in his head. Did he have a reasonable and honest belief that he was about to die at any moment, imminently? Yes, he did. And did he have a duty to retreat fulfilled, even if there was one? This was in Illinois, so I guarantee he had a duty to retreat. He fulfilled it because he couldn't get away. Absolute self-defense. Absolutely, Terry. Exactly. Good job, class. Now, here's a good one. Residents in St. Louis, Michigan. Or, I'm sorry, St. Charles, Michigan. I was going to say, I didn't know St. Louis in Michigan. Residents in St. Charles, Michigan called police around 7:30 a.m. on November 25th, 2022 to report a disorderly man jumping on a car and yelling. However, before officers arrived, the man allegedly broke into a nearby home occupied by a 41-year-old woman and 2 children. 2 neighbors who were concealed carry license holders rushed to the family's aid and detained the crazed man at gunpoint. Police praised the neighbor's intervention and said the home invader appeared to be under the influence of drugs. He was to be charged with home invasion and malicious destruction. Yeah, so I don't know how the guy was behaving by the time the guys with the gun showed up. Said they held him at gunpoint. And this goes to another myth. And I don't know what happened to Kyle there. I think he had a phone call or something. But so you hear a lot of people say, well, I was taught that if you pull the gun, you'd better use it. So based on that story I just gave you, what do you guys think about that? They pulled the gun. Is it good that they didn't use it? It's good they didn't use it. Right. Yeah, because they have this thing called forensics now, and they can kind of tell a lot of things that you don't want them to be able to tell. If you're playing that logic there, Terry, just say it. But yeah, no, that was proper defense of others and proper use of not going into using the deadly force because it just wasn't necessary, apparently, right? The fact that they drew the guns was enough to get whatever was going on stopped and kept the guy there. kept the guy there until law enforcement showed up. So I was telling him, I don't know if you heard this or not, Kyle, but I was telling him about that myth of if you pull the gun, you'd better use it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We heard that one a lot. And usually I love it when people will tell you wrong stuff with pride. They were very excited to know that wrong knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
My grandpa told me.
They had the answer and could not wait to show everyone how much information they had. Just in time to be told they were wrong. So
yeah, Fubar says I was trained shoot, no shoot, pulling your weapon can desolate alone. I'm not sure what that part means. Oh, wait a minute. We got I don't know why he's back. Thing going on. Hey man, did you get kicked out of your own stream?
I haven't had a stream tonight. I was actually on Welsh News Network being interviewed there, and then I came over here and jumped in your chat.
Okay.
And I've been watching, as you know, from the chat and listening. And I wanted to weigh in on the if you pull it, you better use it. If you don't, I guess the idea is 99% of the time when you pull that, the only reason you pulled it is because you have no other choice but to use it. That's my theory. There might be times when you might feel that way and then realize no. So I will agree. I'm just saying that I think predominantly you should never pull that unless you are ready to kill.
At the moment you begin pulling it, you should believe at that point you're going to need it.
Right. Otherwise,
you change by the time it gets out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to act like the cops are not, freeze or all shoot and all the dumb shit. You don't get into that. If you don't have to kill, you don't. If you do, that's what it's there for.
So the mentor that Kyle and I have, Chris Serino, he teaches a concept called the committed trigger. On striker fired guns, you'll have a lot of poundage you can put on a trigger without anything happening. And he tells a story in his classes about once you learn your trigger and you become proficient with it, that you can actually pull the gun out and be several pounds on that trigger without shooting and still come off the trigger and not have to fire. And he tells a story. He tells a story about a kid that had an axe in his hand and he had pounds in the trigger and the kid just suddenly stopped and he let off the trigger. So he calls being a couple pounds on the trigger the committed trigger. So, but I mean, that's just one story. But yeah, just because you pull it, people shouldn't feel an obligation to use it.
And when you say that, I want to point out to anyone out there that may not know, that does not mean that the first time you pull your weapon, you should decide to squeeze the trigger a little bit before you shoot. Know your weapon, please, dear God, before you carry one. Know it well.
Absolutely. So another story here. Let's see. A homeowner in Ludlow, Kentucky witnessed a man breaking into a car early in the morning on December 5th, 2022, and told the vandal he was calling police and urging him to, quote, get out of here. He also told the man several times he had a gun. The man reportedly responded, quote, I'm not scared of you, and charged at the homeowner, who feared for his life and fired at the man, striking him in the neck. So, Kyle, based on your experience as a firearms instructor, he's trying to shoot the guy and shoots him in the neck. Where was he aiming?
No, he's aiming at the head.
Yeah, he was aiming at his head. He hit low left. So, have you seen Chris's video, the Low Left Society?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, anyways, hit him in the neck. The county attorney told the press, quote, when this person who can only be described as a criminal keeps coming towards him, I think it was completely reasonable for the homeowner to fire in self-defense, end quote. The assailant was taken to the hospital and was expected to recover from his wounds and be charged. He allegedly broke into multiple vehicles and attempted to break into a home, which was caught on video before his altercation occurred. Cincinnati, Ohio is where that one was, Kyle. The first one was Chicago, Illinois. The second one I read was Saginaw, Michigan, or at least the news story. And the third one was Cincinnati. But yeah, that's a good example there of something I want to talk about on another podcast. I wanted to talk about the concepts of proportionality. Where's my vocabulary when I need it, right? Don't you hate that? Hate that? Escalation of force. There we go. Escalation of force. Proportionality of force.
Force on force continuum.
Use of force continuum. There we go. That's the one I couldn't think of all of a sudden. So when I'll have a different podcast where we talk about those and the way your civilian thinking can understand those. So what happened here in this case, I would assume, based on what the prosecutor's saying, is that obviously the shooter, the good guy in this case, felt that if the guy charging him got to him, he would have the advantage. So I'm guessing a crook out, beating up, breaking into cars in the middle of the night is probably a youngish person, and you've got get off my grass grandpa going out saying you need to get out of here and I got a gun, right? First off, you don't even need to say that. Stay in the house, call the cops. I thought that was a little silly. That was just not wise, not prudent. You don't need to be yelling at anybody. Just call the cops. Let them show up and catch the guy in the act. But yeah, you had get off my grass grandpa with the gun. And
one thing
yeah,
I did want to say, I was letting you get through that story and stuff, where it plays into this as well. But and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. I'm going to say this again. This is not legal advice, nor do I have information that I believe to be entirely accurate for every state across our nation. But I am personally unaware of any state that there's a law that you must give a verbal command before you would either present a firearm or shoot someone who you believe is going to do you or loved one harm before you actually commit to doing that. So verbal commands, training scenarios, I don't know, we've any type of force on force training or anything that Tom and I have always been a part of, he'll tell you, I don't use them. If it's to the point where I've had to present a firearm and I'm committed to taking a shot, I'm not giving a verbal command because it's already escalated beyond the point I believe that a verbal command is not.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's a good way to take what I've taught tonight and apply it to the scenario. So if you're given a verbal command, odds are, well, in my mind at least, you're not a threat in that moment, right? So one, you didn't start it. Let's assume that part, right? It's not your fault. But two, do you have an honest and reasonable belief of serious bodily harm at this very moment? No, because if you did, why in the hell would you be talking to them? Times for talk's over at that moment. So giving a verbal command and then immediately, well, they didn't listen to me and shooting. That's another thing we see people do in scenarios. They're like, well, I told him drop the gun twice. He didn't, so I shot him. Well, were you justified in shooting? If you were, then stop the threat because somebody might get killed. Or don't use the verbal or use the verbal command because you didn't have the right to use deadly force. Having the right to use deadly force and giving a verbal command, I think, happens mostly because people watch too much TV. Now, law enforcement have different standards. I'm not saying they shouldn't give verbal. Maybe they should. Maybe it's department policy. There's a whole lot of stuff there I don't know.
That's the difference we talked about. Yeah, between civilians, law enforcement, and military.
Right.
Different sets of laws for each one. Lisa's comment too. In case you didn't see that there, Tommy. Yep.
I saw a guy say on Facebook that if he finds out who busted his mailbox, he had a 9mm for them. I don't think someone like that should have a gun. Hey, he said he had a 9mm, not a gun. That's a round. Just joking. I get the point.
I think if a few more of them maybe got a 9 for that, they'd quit busting up mailboxes. I don't know. It's just a guess. That's a terrible way to think, I suppose. But
practical point, definitely not a legal one.
Yeah.
No. It's not a matter of legality. I don't think you did start it. Just you kind of, yeah, he broke your mailbox, but damn, it's not exactly deadly force time,
Well, I'll tell you, fellas, and I'll tell you, Lisa, that the reason that comment caught my eye, again, part of the curriculum stuff that Tom and I would teach for that class, and this does vary state to state. Defense, or protection of property, or defensive property, or any word you would choose to use there.
I missed that.
Right. Yeah. States have different laws regarding protection of property. Ohio, unless, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but I don't believe this did change. You can't, there's no self-defense of property in Ohio.
You
So
can
it's like-
you can't. Well, the way it's worded in the Attorney General's booklet, and I have not looked up the statute, but the Attorney General says you cannot protect property alone. I think
Right.
it's a misleading way to explain it. I think in that section of the book, they just need to say you cannot protect property with deadly force. Period.
Right.
But they cloudy it up in the way they explain it by saying if a deadly threat to a person is part of but then you're not protecting property.
Correct.
Right? If while you're stealing my property, you create a threat to my life and I have to go to deadly force, well, I'm not defending property at all at that point. I'm defending my life. So they muddy it up in the beginning part of the Attorney General's section on this, and then they clarify it. But to me, you wouldn't need to clarify if you didn't make it muddy. You cannot defend property with deadly force in the state of Ohio. Kentucky and West Virginia have a whole set of standards about attached buildings, unattached buildings, property lines, right of ways, all kinds of stuff. And here's what I tell my students, and I may sound like an ass saying it, but I'm going to tell you, if you want to kill people over a four-wheeler or walking through your yard, you find another way to interpret laws, because I'm not going to teach that even if I understood it. I'm not going to tell you how and when you can shoot and kill somebody over that. I get the point. I grew up out in the country I grew up believing a no trespassing sign. If I passed it, meant that the owner could literally shoot and kill me. It's not true. It wasn't even true then when I was growing up out in the country, but I thought it was, dadgummit. So I understand that mentality, but you can't do it. There was a time in America when you could, and here's how I explain it to people. I also study a crap ton of history. There was a time in America where if you stole a family's cow, you stole their surviving a winter. If you stole their pigs, you stole their ability to survive. If you stole their horse, they couldn't plow a field, right?
Or get to town to get grain.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was a time when stealing certain kinds of property literally meant life and death for the people you're talking about. I'm not saying that doesn't exist anywhere in America, but that's really not the norm anywhere in America anymore. And I think, although I would love to have that macho American attitude of they try to take my four-wheeler, damn it, they're going to pay for it with a 45, whatever. It's just, as an ethical, moral human, I can't justify that, especially in a day and age where I've got the best evidence gathering equipment anybody's ever carried in their hand. If I literally know it's happening, instead of grabbing a gun or going to the gun, go to this. Be great in court. Watch them go to jail and laugh at them. I'd much rather do that. If, of course, there's no extenuating circumstances that turns it into a deadly force incident. If it does, then we're not talking about property anymore. Now we're talking about life and death. Then it's a whole different story. So Fubar says, rock salt in the ass. I got a really cool story. I lived up in Chicago area for 4 years in between my 2 times in the Army. And I moved up there as a naive 22-year-old and was just looking for some place me and a wife could afford at the time, and ended up moving into Gary, Indiana, not knowing it just happened to be the murder capital of the country at the time. And Lisa, I'll talk about that here in a second. So we move in this neighborhood, and I go to church, and I'm telling people where we moved, and people are like, and I was a country boy from Southern Ohio with a much more Southern accent than I do today at the time. And so I'm up there and I'm going to church, and these people ask me where I'm at. And they're like, isn't that like an all black neighborhood? And I said, no. I said, it's mixed. And they'd say, really? And I'd be like, yeah, me and my wife, we're the mix. So we were the only white people in this neighborhood. And I swear to God, I'm not just telling this to make a story cool. It's the truth. It's still to this day the best neighborhood I've ever lived in. And I'm getting to the point of this story. It comes back to what we're talking about here in a second. So right down the street from me was the most redneck black dude I've ever met in my life. He was about 6'4", 6", whatever. He's a giant of a man. Wore bibbed overalls, John Deere hat, plaid shirts, and boots, even in the summer. Had a big old the Vans. Hey, there's Patrick. Scooter Lee is Patrick, Kyle.
Oh,
Yeah. So So I mean, he chewed tobacco, like we're talking like Red Man in the pouch, and he chewed tobacco and spit tobacco all the time too. And he would even go out and wax his what do they call those vans that were like small RVs back in the day? They don't really make them much anymore that I know of. Certain kind of van. Anyways, he would go out and wax that thing and wash it once a week, even in the winter in Chicago winters. But he was a steel worker up there. So one day, me and the wife at the time, we're coming back down to Southern Ohio to visit. And he sees us packing luggage in the trunk and says, comes over, spitting tobacco and says, "Hey, where you guys going?" I tell him, "Well, who's going to get your mail and feed the dog?" We tell him, and he goes, "Okay." So we've got a young white man with blonde hair and a young blonde girl driving a Pinto or whatever, some cheap car they had at the time. And their car, you think their car's blue, right? And I'm like, "Yeah." "Okay, so they're coming to get your mail, feed the dog for you." He said, "Okay, anyone else comes by, I'm shooting them." We were like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah." He says, "Anyone else comes by, I'm gonna shoot him." He says, "Why do you think we got crime all around us, but not on this street?" And I was like, I don't know. I just thought it was good, And he started pointing at all the houses that he had shot intruders going into. Now, I say this because Fubar mentioned rock salt in the ass. That's exactly what he gave them all. He gave all the, and it was like two local kids. In other words, two kids that lived on the street were breaking into neighbors' houses, and he shot the local kids in the ass with rock salt climbing in windows. And 1950s style, kids had to come apologize to him and all this. No court trials, nobody arrested, none of this stuff. This was like old school Leave It to Beaver in the middle of the murder capital of the country, because two or three of the guys that lived on this street were like old school, ethical, moral, hardworking, middle America kind of people living in the middle of this, one of the most corrupt, decrepit cities in the nation. So whenever I hear about rock salt, I always think of that dude, and I wish I knew his name, and I wish I'd gotten to know those people a little better, because they treated me amazing. In Chicago snows, I would wake up and my sidewalks and my driveway had been snow blown while I was sleeping. I sleep really deep. It takes a lot to wake me up. So they would go out and snow blow my driveway and my sidewalk before I even woke up. And I'm pretty sure it was him. But parents today would sue. Oh, it would be in the news, all kinds of stuff. So let's see. Fubar says, "When I was working armed in Colorado, if I even touched my gun in a holster, it could be used against me as a direct threat." Yes and no. So once you put your hand on the gun or expose the gun, you have potentially brandished. Now, the Ohio version of brandishment, last time I looked it up, was if you expose the gun, or in your case, touch the gun with a means to intimidate. You are trying to change the behavior of others through intimidation. You didn't have justification to use it, but you showed it to get your way, so to speak. And that's why, sorry about that. Yeah, I know the internet can be bad. Hopefully you're plugging in with the cable and not doing Wi-Fi. But anyways, thanks for letting me know what happened, because I was kind of wondering there. So let's see. And then Lisa says, "We had cattle stolen a couple years ago. We got them back thanks to DNA. They were all pregnant when stolen, so match the calf's DNA to the bull." CSI on the range. I thought it was funny.
I laughed
interesting.
because I know you did.
Yeah, I know. Thanks. No, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But back to my point, I'm assuming, Lisa, that you and your family would not have starved to death and become emaciated trying to survive the hard winter if you didn't get them back. I'm assuming. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I will definitely take your answer serious. Patrick lived here in the house for a while. That's a different story I can tell another day. But he says he can attest to me being a deep sleeper. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to wake me up. But let's see. Was there another? Did I miss another question? Okay, yeah, the mailbox. I mean, not only that. Okay, let's just talk wisdom for a second, right? Wisdom, prudence, using your brain a little bit. Yeah, just a lot of loss of money. That's what I assumed. And I'm glad you got them back, and I hope bad guys were put away and all that. But I don't think it justifies killing someone like it may have in 1883, for instance. Um, so I was about to talk about something, Kyle. Do you know what I was about to say?
Mailboxes,
Oh, yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah, you can't kill somebody over a mailbox. So prudence would
I mean,
say,
you could.
don't put that stuff on Facebook. If you have bad intentions that are even potentially illegal, don't put it in Facebook or Instagram.
Put it on Twitter.
Or or Twitter. Don't make a web page about I'm going to kill my mailbox damager or thief or whatever. You fell asleep on the grenade range. What the hell?
I believe he's saying when. Maybe not.
Talking about deep sleeping? Oh, that must be what he's talking about. Ex-military fell asleep on the grenade. Oh,
Gotcha.
Yeah. So in basic training, I was desperate for sleep, right? So you know how, they talk about the tight bunks and all that. And so I would get underneath my bunk where it was just like the old school springs, not a box spring or nothing, but the frame itself had springs. I would get underneath there to look like I was tightening up my bunk, and I would stick my fingers in the springs. So it looked at me laying on the floor. It looked like I was working on my bed, but I was just asleep with my fingers stuck in the springs. I would catch
Why does that not shock me?
Man, you can find a million ways to sleep, Fubar, when you're in those situations. Am I right? I know I've slept in the middle of jet blast and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I actually fell asleep doing a jumping jack once. Fell right into the guy next to me. Fell asleep literally in the middle of a jumping jack. So, yeah. But anyways, guys, just wanted to give you the lowdown on how to think about self-defense from a user's perspective, so to speak. Not law enforcement, not military, not the way a lawyer has to think about it. Because when you have it explained to you, they're going to talk about means, opportunity, and motive, right? That's not how you need to think when danger is confronting you. It may be true when you get to court, right? But that's not the way. You can't think those ways in your decision-making capabilities. Means, opportunity, and motive is about how they prove, right? So there's all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, law enforcement talks all the time about you must be able to articulate. Well, that's totally off subject there, Patrick. But law enforcement will talk about, well, you must be able to articulate this. What they mean is they've been taught that because when they get on the stand as a witness in the cases, they need to be able to say it in a way that justifies their actions. And you got to do those actions a certain way so that you can articulate it as the truth in a way that justifies your actions. I always tell them, I ain't got to articulate anything. I'm a civilian. I don't have to get on a stand and say a word. I can be deaf, dumb, and mute on the subject. I don't have to articulate it. Now, if I do it right, I would be able to articulate it. But that's not a requirement for me. They say that all the time because they're taught about how they would get on the stand and be a witness in the cases they're involved in. So that's one of the reasons as I used to teach this over and over and over and over. So for 2 solid years, I taught this at Bear Arms in Ashland, Kentucky, every single Saturday except for 2. So out of 104 weekends, I taught it 102 weekends in a row. And so got really... Well, Kyle will attest. Once I start talking, it just all flows out like those handkerchiefs the magicians pull out and they just keep coming. That's the way the lecture usually goes. So tonight was different for me because I had discussion in the middle. Normally, I just vomit it all out before anything stops. Ironton Auditor said he slept for 45 minutes locked in his wall locker. I saw guys do that too. I also saw the wall locker got tipped over because somebody knew they were in there, if you know what I mean. Terry, you fit in there. Might as well use it. Yeah, Terry's not. You got plenty of room in the wall locker. Yeah, I'd say especially back then. Hey guys, I really appreciate everybody in here. I mean, this is all I had planned to talk about. If anybody has any questions or anything, feel free. But this was all I had planned for the night, anyways. I've been a little. So I'll tell Kyle. I was telling him this before we got on. Something has clicked in me. So in 2017, when my son left for basic training, he had been listening to rap and modern country during his high school years. And so I had to listen to it when I was in the car with him and stuff, right? So he goes to basic and I'm missing him. So I decided to start listening to his music. So I started listening to modern country. So since the summer of 2017 until now, about 95% of all the music I listen to has been modern country, not old country, stuff that a lot of people say isn't even, okay, Fubar. A lot of people say isn't even country. I really don't care about the labels. We're drinking tonight, Patrick, is Elijah Craig single barrel. I'm sorry, Evan Williams single barrel. 2013 barrel. Good stuff. Single barrel. So, each different barrel will be a little bit different. But anyways, so yesterday something happened. I don't even know what happened, but I got on this nostalgic kick. So back in the 80s when I was in high school, I was a music snob and I only listened to stuff that I thought, was like the hoity-toity of rock. So it was like all progressive rock stuff. And so I've been going back and listening to stuff I haven't listened to in decades, the last 24, 48 hours. So was listening to Genesis Supper's Ready. If anybody knows what that is, let me know, because almost nobody probably will.
It should have stayed back in those decades.
What? Not Genesis Supper's Ready. See, Kyle doesn't like Phil Collins, and I'm a Phil Collins fan, have been for many, many, many years. So, okay. Lisa says, by the way, the duck fart shot is a pretty layered shot with tiers of coffee liqueur, Irish cream liqueur, and whiskey.
I love it.
It sounds damn good. I'd have to change the name of it. Oh, old Granddad Rye. I don't think I have an old Granddad Rye. I got the standard one. I got bottled and bond, and I got the old Granddad 114, but I don't have the Rye. Flock of Seagulls? No, not Flock of Seagulls. Oh my God, Fubar. That would. I am not a snob anymore, but I have not fallen that far. And the update on rucking, I have ran and rucked this week, but this is the third day in a row where I have failed myself. I had some bad news on Tuesday night, and it kind of rocked my world a little bit, 24 hours. And then the fixing of the issue has been the last day and a half. So it's really hard. And I said this in my other updates. One of the biggest accomplishments when you can do something like this is simply recreating and restructuring your life around the training, being able to consistently make yourself do it. And I've failed the last couple of days, but I'm getting back on the horse again tomorrow, and I will probably do a short video because when I ruck tomorrow or run or both, it'll probably be during daylight. So I'll probably do a short live stream and put it. And so we'll see, but not giving up, not stopping, just got knocked off my track a little bit, which has really been not very well established yet. It still hasn't been made a habit. The structure of my life and certain things going on in my life are changing right now, and it's knocked some of my pattern off, which I was trying to establish and really hadn't got it anyways. He rucking refuses to start rucking. Well, ruck you rucking non-rucker you. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Scooter, if you can, hey, Lisa, thanks for being here. Always appreciate it. You always have some funny stuff and some good information too.
Enjoy the
Terry,
comments,
I sure
please.
appreciate that. Yeah, sure appreciate that, Terry. Hey, it's tough out there, Fubar. How is it they say that? It's tough everywhere. I don't know. It's like an old phrase, just kind of a generic small talk thing. Anyways, I plan on getting back on it tomorrow. Having a real tough time with push-ups because I got a wrist problem. So I started trying to do it on my fists. Have you done push-ups on your fist, Kyle?
Oh,
Holy moly. That is
fingertips.
Yeah, no, screw
Not
that.
so much anymore, but
yeah. That
I
is
did get back in the gym though. I told you I was going to for what we got going on later on in the year, and I am back in the gym despite some of the health stuff I've got going on, but so it's slow, but
that's what I'm saying. This stuff doesn't happen. It doesn't turn on a dime. You don't just say I'm doing it. Now, maybe if you're 18 through 26-ish and you got no wife or no kids, and
that'd be nice.
Then maybe you can
the
do
young
this
part. I don't want my fiance or my kids to see this and think I didn't mean just the young part. So I'll clarify that. But. Yeah,
Fubar, I'd never done them before, honestly. I'd always done standard push-ups. Now, I varied the width of my hands and stuff, but I'd never done – and it is so significantly different. Holy moly. I mean, even with pain, I can do like 20 push-ups sometimes, right? And like when I got challenged at the high school and some kids just wanted to see me do push-ups, I can do knock out 20 just like that. But remember my car accident and this broken finger? That's what's causing me the problems. It won't extend far enough anymore. It's getting tighter. And so when I try to do this, it hurts. So I started trying to do this, and oh my God, I can only do like 12. And
Try just positioning your hands too, Tom. Different angles of your hand. It makes your wrist turn a different way.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try that. Iron Auditor says he push open the gate when he leaves. Does this count as pushing? My daughter used to say she did one complete sit-up a day when she sits up in bed in the morning and when she lays back down at night. So I think that falls under the same category of working out there, Ironton Auditor. But
as long as you're pushing it open and pushing it closed.
Yeah, right. It's got to be complete. It's got to be a complete cycle. A Patrick Scooter. I don't know if you heard in any of the other, but we're doing a homemade Arnton version of Go Ruck Selection. He's officially 25. Wish I remembered when your birthday was, dude. Sorry about that, but happy birthday. If you can ruck, great.
Your insurance will go down now.
You're right. It is 25. If you can ruck and work out, great. We'll let you know, and you can get involved if you want to. And if you can't, we may need you for logistics support in August. So just throwing that out there. Especially, we want to live stream as much of it as we can in August, and we'll need someone holding cameras that isn't sweaty enough to let the camera fall out of their hands. So
logistics. If you're worried about what that word means, you can Google it.
What? I push open when leaving, pull shut when coming back. Does this fit the formula? That's one complete rep. That's one.
As long as it's 24 hours. It has to be within 24 hours. But that's a rep. Yep.
That's never happened before. So here's another bit of whiskey that I've learned. Have you ever let a little bit sit overnight, Kyle, and come back?
Yeah. Yeah, don't waste it.
It is horrible.
Nah.
Because overnight almost all the alcohol evaporates. So what you get left with is dirty wood water.
You don't put it in the fridge?
No, I'm saying if like I'm sitting here drinking and I forget or whatever, and I just get up, I say, man, I'm going to bed, and I just get up and I come back the next day.
My wife puts it, when I do that, she puts it in the fridge.
Well, just for education, leave just a few drops in one overnight and see what I mean. Well, this just happened during the podcast. It's just dirty woody tasting water. Now, something I have found too is leaving the glass out overnight with nothing in it, but it's got the residue around the glass. My God, that smells amazing the next day, doesn't it?
Yeah, that I've done plenty of times.
Holy moly, that is great. Yes.
That happens frequently, actually.
Yeah. He told Chad to go buy a Chili helmet they invented. Chili invented a helmet? I didn't know that. I'm not in on the Chili info, Fubar. I'm sorry. I know I'm on the fringes of this community, which is all about some chili bashing. You know how Chad likes to think about fundraisers? Wonder if we could do some sort of chili cook-off contest. Transparency helmet. Okay, I'll take your word on that. Like I said, I'm out of cameras in 360. Oh, is that the helmet? I'm getting confused. But anyways, yeah, some sort of chili cook-off, and we could have caricatures of him, or I don't know. It's got to be a way to use that.
Name the chilies after him. Each one of them has to be some kind of.
Yeah, here's Tom's push the button chili.
Yeah.
And here's
don't push the button chili.
Here's Chad's Infinity headphones, or whatever he calls it. He walks around with headphones on his head as if it's a status symbol. I don't know what the deal is with that, but anyways.
Those are beats, by the way, Tom.
Okay. FU chili cook-off. What's that, Kyle?
Those are beats, by the way. Definitely beats.
So that's why he's wearing them. He wants to show everyone he can afford beats. Is that what you're thinking?
I'm not judging Chad on why he's wearing them. I'm
No,
just
not Chad. No, not Chili. Chili just wears headphones around.
Chad had
They're
on a
not on his
headset.
ears. No, with
Right.
Chili, they're not even on his ears. He just wears them on his head.
I heard a name that started with C, and it just sounded the same to me.
Oh my God! You don't want Chad to hear you confused him with Chili.
I hope he does. That makes for a good show.
Oh my God! Fubar says that fits. Chili cook-off, the one that gives you the runs, the worst wins. That should be called Taco Bell Combo Chili. Hey, I got a great joke. It cracks me up anyways. I have a hard time telling it because I usually laugh trying to tell it. Why does Taco Bell not have play centers? It's kind of hard to have fun when you're about to shit your pants. That never gets old.
I believe that joke belongs in the same time as your Phil Collins songs you're listening to.
Hey, I laugh. That's what matters most. I think I'm gonna get off here, gentlemen. It's coming on 2 hours. I really, seriously, honestly mean I appreciate everybody here, even you, Patrick, even you. He says he'll be the chili judge.
I'll be the judge.
That's the chili judge, yeah. And man, I tell you what, I got to find a way to fix these tech issues. There's so much I want to do that I just literally can't do. I'd like to do a music reaction to Supper's Ready. That would be a 25-minute. That's a 25-minute song, by the way.
It will never get back.
So, well, you wouldn't have to co-host with that one. I mean, that's just, I wouldn't put you through it. Plus, all you do is make fun of me. You wouldn't even make fun of the song. You would just make fun of me.
Oh, no, I'd make fun of the song, too. I would just make fun of you for liking the song, then make fun of the song while you enjoy it.
The song's amazing, and you suck for not even knowing that. But you're just too young. That's okay.
That's not true, but I'll let you roll with it.
Yeah, I mean, the version that I listened to was recorded in 76. So, good night, Carolyn. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. The only problem using Chili's likeness is he would do a lawsuit. That's true. He's good at those, or at least creating them. Whether he wins or not is another story. We'd have to find a way around that.
I think most people practicing law wear a suit.
That's why they call it a law. That's why they call it a lawsuit, Kyle.
Yeah,
come on
that was
now.
a Larry County joke.
Come on now.
We could do the show on Phil Collins, man. I'd be a part of that. I'm just more of a leadhead, man.
I want to go back and redo the first person defender episodes.
Yeah, we need to do that.
And I want to get to Gibb. I mean, he probably thinks we just abandoned him and did it without him.
I hope not. I haven't talked to Chris or Gibb, but I reached out to both of them and say, hey, but yeah, we need to do Gibbs. Mine was a kind of a disaster. We at least had some good conversation, but I don't even know if
it was
most of that aired.
Disaster. Hey, Fubar, thanks for being here, man.
Fubar, buddy. Have a good night.
Chad's here. Oh, not Chad. Terry. I see your logo at a glance. I think it's Chad's. But thanks, everybody, for being here. We got 3 people left. I'm going to let you guys go. I've been trying to come up with some little finishing catchphrases like Chad does. He's got this whole 5.5 minutes of things he finishes with, and he's good at it. I don't really want to do quite that much, but I was thinking today something that I say that maybe I could start using, don't worry about making a difference. Just make yourself different. I kind of get, and I know this kind of goes against Chad. Me and him will have to have a discussion about it and sort of iron out what we truly mean. But I think one of the problems we have in modern society is everybody trying to change the world when all you got to worry about is you. Make you a great, ethical, moral, law-abiding, productive citizen, and the rest takes care of itself. You don't have to worry about the world. So, anyways, hey, thanks there, Terry. Yeah, I get tired of hearing all the TV commercials and all the corporations and all the celebrities and all the athletes talking about make a difference. Well, they don't, or they don't the right way. And if they just simply were good citizens and good people and good moral people and law abiding and left everybody alone and worried about themselves, I think that would make a big difference in the world. Lead by example. Just do. Quit trying to push others to be what you wish you were or whatever. But
strive for perfection, settle for excellence.
Oh, now this is funny. Patrick said, I'll sit in the back smoking a cigar and say, are you not entertained? That'd be funny. I don't know if you mean the chili cook-off or whether you mean selection, but either one, that's funny. So, are you not entertained? Anyways, I could ramble on for a while, but I'm going to let you guys go. Have a good night. We're literally hitting 2 hours exactly. Thanks a lot for being here. Like, subscribe. Thank you. Good night.